All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be making our prediction tier list of what does Midnight have in store for us and what are we looking like moving into this new expansion. All right. So we'll kick it off with Arms Warrior. All right. I know a lot of people have been talking about Arms. Saying it's not as great, not as good in the beta. With all the changes that are making, I think a lot of people are putting it into a C tier, but I'm gonna go one above. I'm gonna say it's gonna end up being a B tier. I think that the damage balancing, and I think that the class tuning and stuff, it's gonna change enough. It's gonna knock it up one tier. So I will put Arms in the B tier. Next up, we have Fury Warrior. All right, Fury again. It's kind of in the same. I think it's doing a little bit better than Arms on the beta right now. And I think it is going to end up being the meta DPS spec between the two. But it's I think that Fury Warrior is probably just going to end up doing B tier damage. I don't really think that there's a lot you're bringing to a group, and I don't think that there's enough changes to make Fury just do really, really well. All right. Next up is going to be Protection Warrior. A lot of the changes to Prot Warrior, especially within our talent tree, it's so much fun and it's so easy to play a Prot Warrior that I really think that Prot Warrior is going to end up sticking in the A tier in Midnight, and I think that first season, obviously, as things stand right now, I don't think Prot Warrior is going to be in the S tier, but I think that you could honestly interchange it. And I think that you could put it in either of these spots, depending on what you're trying to do. But I think overall, Prot Warrior is going to be an A tier tank. Next up, we have Assassination Rogue. Honestly, I haven't seen a whole lot about rogues yet. I know early in the expansions, they don't normally do that well, but from what I have seen of people talking, I think that assassination is going to end up in the C tier. I think that sub is going to end up in the D tier, and I think that outlaw is going to end up in the C tier. This is kind of what I'm thinking for rogues based off of like the handful of things that I have seen about it and what I personally expect from these two or from these three specs. All right. And on to Hunter. Okay, so marksmanship, everything I've seen, marksmanship appears to be turning into this unforgiving playstyle, but when you actually get it down, it does really well. So I think that marksmanship is going to end up in the B tier, and I think that the spec as a whole is always been fun. I know there's a lot of bugs going on right now with the way that Black Arrow works. You're kind of forced into playing Sentinel, and that's where this like almost perfect gameplay is coming into play. But at the same time, I think that if we get Dark Ranger back for marksmanship, then I think that marksmanship in and of itself could be a very, very powerful spec to play, and I think that it could do a lot of damage. But I don't see it going above the B tier, mostly because of some of these other specs that are just doing better. All right, and then survival. I think survival is going to be in C tier. I know a lot of people are talking about how it looks really good and like it feels good to play, but at the same time, like I see survival as being like high C, low B. Like I really think that that is the way that it should go, and I think that I think that if survival gets some major buffs, maybe, but I don't foresee survival honestly um just topping the charts. Okay. Beast Mastery, from what I can tell, it's retained a lot of its former identity, and it's still a very simple spec to play. Still a very easy spec to play. But the damage is apparently lacking now. It's just being outperformed by a couple other specs. So I think Beast Mastery is going to retain its A tier spot. Um, if for no other reason than just based off of popularity. It's mind boggling to me that Beast Mastery is still going to be up there, and the amount of changes that they got, like it blows my mind that the damage did not get a mega nerf or the spec. Like the fact that they pruned Beast Mastery just is absolutely crazy to me. I think that is insane that they would do that. All right. Vengeance, as many issues as I have with Vengeance, unfortunately, like I think Vengeance is going to sit in either the A tier or the S tier. Um, Probably gonna end up in the S tier just because of the early survivability, the strengths, the simplicity of the new hero tree. I think that Vengeance is going to end up being in the S tier, and I think even with its weaknesses, like it's still gonna be a very, very strong tank going into the war within. All right. Havoc is looking really strong right now, but everything on the beta is saying it's not. I'm gonna put Havoc into the B tier. I think that, if it's being played correctly and maybe if it's comped around, then it'll do well. But I think as a whole, it's just gonna be kind of middle of the pack damage. All right. Guardian Druid. So, as it stands right now, I know Guardian's kind of having some survival issues, but I've also talked with a couple of people who play Guardian Druid as a main, and they say, like, yeah, you just kind of have to be a little bit more cautious with your pulls, and you have to make sure you have something up ready to deal with it. I think we're going to see Guardian in the A tier, and I think that Guardian is going to be a good tank to play and a fun tank, all the same, especially with the amount of talent tree changes they've got. They've got 2 hero trees that they can play effectively in Mythic Plus now. I think that Guardian Druid is sitting pretty to be a very, very good spec moving forward. All right. Feral Druid, I've actually seen a lot about Feral Druid, and a lot of people are saying it's good. I honestly think that Feral Druid is going to be in the A tier. I think that, Feral Druid is going to be good depending on how good is Guardian and how good is Restoration. Because if Guardian or Resto are good, then um, you're not gonna play Feral. But at the same time, like if they're all three performing similarly, I really think that Pharaoh could see a lot more gameplay. I don't think it has any competition with balance, just because like you're running two different comps with that, right? So like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for more of a physical comp? Or are you looking for more of a magical comp? I don't really think that balance and Pharaoh have to compete with each other solely because there's such different comps that you would take them. There's I can't think of any comp that you would want a balance and a feral to fight over a spot for. I really can't. All right, next up we have Resto Druid. So Resto Druid is actually looking really, really strong still. And I think that they're going to end up in the S tier. And I think that they are going to be one of the top contenders for a healer spot going into Midnight. And then last, we have Balance. So everything I've seen about Balance, I am predicting a C tier. Balance just is not looking very good. It doesn't look like it's going to be able to do a whole lot. It's just it's rough. All right. Next up we have. So I'm gonna throw both Frost and Unholy into A tier. Both of them look really good. Both of them look really strong. Both of them are having amazing things said about them. So when push comes to shove, I think they're gonna be good specs, but I don't think they're gonna be meta specs. Um, Primarily because of what we're seeing as the potentially meta tanks. I just don't think that either one of them fit into the comp well enough to be meta, and I think that there's also going to be some DPS that are outperforming both of them and bringing more to the party than what either of them are bringing. Right. Next up, we have Blood Death Knight. All right, Blood Death Knight, in and of itself, it's actually not sitting in a bad spot. It looks pretty good, but again, it's going into Midnight with the same thing that it went into season 3 with, where it feels like it's just missing something. But all in all, I would put Blood Death Knight into the B tier. All right. Um, I think that it has the potential to go higher, but I don't expect it to because it's always going to suffer from that Blood Death Knight problem, and that's really what I think we're gonna deal with as in playing a Blood Death Knight. It's not good enough to stay in the meta, and I don't think that it will ever be good enough to go above a B tier unless they drastically, drastically change how the spec works and how Blood Death Knights take damage. All right, next up we have Devastation Evoker. I think honestly Evoker is actually looking really good. And I'm going to put Evoker in the A tier Their numbers are looking really good. Everything I've seen, everybody's talking about how they do really well. They're scaling good in AoE. They don't have prio damage anymore, so I don't think they're gonna end up in the S tier. But I definitely think that Devastation is going to be up there in some keys. Maybe not in the top, 0.1% keys, but I think that they are going to do very, very well across the board. All right. Augmentation, honestly, I have not seen anything about anybody testing augmentation. So because of that, I'm just gonna assume that not much is changing, and I'm gonna leave it. I'll put it in the low C tier. Again, I haven't seen many people testing it. I don't imagine that augmentation is going to change that much to where you have to have it again. So we'll just leave it in the C tier and see what happens there. Preservation Evoker. Honestly, I think it's still going to be a D tier spec. I just don't think they have the throughput to keep up in Mythic Plus. I don't think that they're good enough to be in the raid, and I just honestly and truly like I think that Preservation Evoker is just not going to be a good healer again. Moving on to Paladin, Holy Paladin. I've actually heard a lot of people talking about Holy Paladin, how simple it is and how easy it is to do it, but the throughput is what I'm worried about, and I'm going to put it in the B tier because of that. I think that it has potential, and I think that you could very easily play a Holy Paladin and be okay. But I don't think you're going to be in title keys. I don't think you're going to be, or not title keys. I don't think you're going to be in the 0.1%, and I don't think you're going to be pushing the highest keys possible. But I definitely think that you'll be okay, you'll be sitting okay if you end up playing a Holy Priest. All right, or I'm sorry, a Holy Paladin. Next up, we have Ret. Ret, honestly, I've not been seeing a whole lot of good things about the damage. So I'm gonna put them into a C tier. Hopefully they get some buffs, but most people are saying like a lot of people have said that they're at D tier performance. So I'm gonna assume they'll get some changes, some buffs, and they're gonna end up being a C tier performer overall. I would love to see them go higher, but I don't foresee it happening right now. Next up, we have Prot Paladin. So Prot Paladin, there are ways that you can do really well as a Prot Paladin, and there are things you can do. But I think everything I've seen, their overall performance, they're not going to be an S tier spec. I think at best they'll be in the A tier, but I feel more confident putting them into B tier. Just because like you kind of from everything I've seen, you're kind of choosing between damage or survivability, and you're almost always going to take survivability. The way that the damage is coming in, you're not really using your utility on your group, you're kind of using it more on yourself, and so you kind of lose that aspect. One of the things that makes a prop paladin an S tier tank is when their damage is controlled, their damage taken is easily mitigated, and their utility is going more to the party than themselves, right? Like I have so many key bindings set up and mouse overcast set up on my prop paladin just so that I can take care of my group because I don't need it. I'm good. I'm chilling. And I think that's what prop paladin is. And I think that if you are going to play a prop paladin, if you're going to play a prop paladin in the highest of high keys, then you have to be able to control your damage and keep yourself alive and still give your group something. And I think if you're not giving your group anything, then you're not performing as well as you can. And I think that they have the potential to go into the A tier, but I think as it stands, I think Prop Paladin is just gonna be a B tier spec. All right. Next up, we have Discipline Priest. So I know they changed a lot with Discipline. A lot of people have talked about how Discipline is much simpler now and it's a little bit different and everything. But I think Discipline is still going to be an A tier spec. I think that they're going to be performing very well. Maybe not in the top 1%, but I think as a whole, they're going to be performing just insanely well in both Raid and in Mythic Plus too, right? Holy Priest, I'm gonna put him into B tier. There's not a whole lot that changed with Holy Priest. I think they're okay, but I mean they're not gonna be the best. They're not gonna be the worst. All right. Shadow Priest is another one I haven't seen a whole lot about, and I'm just gonna kind of guess that they're gonna probably sit in either the C or the D tier. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, put them in the C tier. All right. I think that Shadow is going to continue to struggle with the same thing that it has always struggled with, being outshined by Discipline and or Holy. And I don't think that we're going to see a Shadow season until one of these two specs is just unplayable, right? Next up, we have Windwalker. Honestly, I'm going to put Windwalker into the A tier, um, mostly because it's still doing very well. But I think that Windwalker is going to be dependent on Brewmaster, and I think Windwalker is going to be kind of swapped around to play with a Prot Warrior as opposed to a Brewmaster. You're never really going to stack monks. But I think that as it stands right now, I think Windwalker is in a good place to comp with a holy or with a Prot Paladin. Prot Paladin, holy smokes! I think Windwalker is in a good place to comp well with a Prot Warrior. But outside of that, I think they're going to be kind of outshined a little bit. But again, their damage and their numbers, I think it's still going to be there. All right. So next up, we have our Brewmaster Monk. So Brewmaster is sitting in an amazing spot. I mean, the talent reworks, the damage scaling, the tankiness, the simplicity that we got to our gameplay. Like it is just amazing to see how Brewmaster is doing right now. And I think that it's absolutely phenomenal what they're doing to Brewmaster, and it is just insane to think about. All right. Then, last but not least, for monks, we have Windwalker. Everything I have kind of seen, nobody is excited about playing a Windwalker. I'm gonna put it. Windwalker is just not doing great. They're not doing well, and I don't foresee any situation where Windwalker is going to be doing above a D tier performance. I think they'll probably outperform Preservation, but I think that's the only healer they're going to outperform as everything stands. So, next up, we've got Warlocks. Honestly, I'm going to put Destro into the C tier. I'm going to put Affliction in the B tier, or I'm sorry, in the A tier, and I'm going to put Demonology in the B tier. All right. So the reason why I'm doing this is everything that I'm seeing, everything I'm seeing, like from beta and all of that, Destro is just not doing good damage. Like they have okay AOE, but they have absolutely no single target. And Demonology is doing very well, but it's struggling almost from a lack of identity, and it's struggling from a just wait for a proc and then before you do something. Okay, wait for a proc and then do something. Okay, wait for a proc and then do something. Like, you have your opener, get your demons, get everything out there. Okay, now wait for your proc. And I think that is hindering them because they're just not doing enough damage outside of their procs, and they're not procking enough to actually work, right? And then Affliction, I think Affliction is putting up the best numbers. I think that it's the easiest play style, and I think that it is performing the best out of all the Warlock specs. And so I imagine this could be a season where we see a Warlock in the meta, but I also think that's going to depend 100% on what tank are we playing. All right. Arcane Mage going in the S tier, Frost Mage going in the S tier. And here's why. So Arcane Mage is just bringing this massive priority damage, and it's just murdering everything. And it is doing phenomenal priority damage. It's doing phenomenal single target, and its AoE is still there. Next up, we're seeing Frost Mage. Frost Mage coming out of the woodworks, right? It's just doing stupid damage. Their cleave damage, maybe not the best. Their single target damage, maybe not the best, but they're still putting up better numbers than everybody. And I think that this could be one of the first seasons where we see people swapping between Frost and Arcane, just depending on what do you need for the group. And I think that is just amazing. All right. Fire Mage, unfortunately, if you have combustion, you're in the S tier. If you don't have combustion, you're a D tier. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and I'm going to put it into C tier. I'm going to hope that fire gets a little bit of buffs, but as it stands right now, you're not playing a fire mage. All right. Resto Shaman. Honestly, a lot of the changes and a lot of things I've been seeing is Resto Shaman is actually still doing pretty good. And I think that, it's going to perform better than what people think, but I also don't think it's going to make it above the B tier. In reality, when it all comes down to it, I think that Resto Shaman is going to perform good enough to get you your high keys, get you your title keys, but I think that's really all you're getting from them, and I don't really think that you're bringing a Resto Shaman just to have a Resto Shaman, right? Enhancement, honestly, enhancement, I've not really been seeing a whole lot of good things. A lot of people are kind of disappointed in it. I'm gonna put it into the B tier with Resto Shaman. I think that enhancement is going to do okay, but I don't think it's going to be anything to write home about. And then finally, we have Elemental Shaman. Elemental Shaman, I've seen some really good things, but I also think that it's going to end up in the A tier. I don't think it's going to be good enough to be S tier. So at the end of the day, Elemental is good, but I don't foresee a world where um I don't foresee a world where it is just going to outperform everybody. All right. So this is kind of my prediction of what we're going to be looking at in the War Within. And I know you might be thinking, well, hold on. You have two tanks, two DPS, and one healer in the S tier. How are we going to know the meta? I think that in reality, the meta is going to be very, very comp dependent. And I think for one of probably the first seasons ever, the meta is not going to be determined by a spec or a class. It's going to be determined by what type of comp are you running, and I'll explain. All right. So we have our 6 tanks. All right, don't worry about the tiers. All right. So we've got a Prot Warrior, a Brewmaster Monk, a Vengeance Demon Hunter, a Blood DK, Prot Paladin, and a Guardian Druid. All right. Now, obviously, I think this is what's going to determine what is the meta of everything. Now, obviously, we saw that Brewmaster and Vengeance are at the top. So I don't really think that it matters a whole lot what you comp with these. I think you'll be okay. Meta specs, non-meta specs, it's not going to matter. But for these, this is what I think is going to end up happening. All right. So for a let's start with a Brewmaster. All right. So for a Brewmaster, just because of how it plays, you're going to want a Resto Druid or you're going to want a Resto Shaman, right? These are pretty much the healers that you're going to end up taking. Okay. So I think that either of these, this is going to be your tank healer combo here. And I think that you're going to have to sort this out, which is going to end up putting whichever Resto or Resto, Druid or Shaman, whichever one is performing better is going to be end up being in the meta. Then as far as your DPS goes, in order for Brewmaster to help its group out, you want that physical damage, right? So that's going to be your hunter specs. That's going to be your warrior specs. Oops. Yeah. Or your rogue specs, right? So this is pretty much what I expect to be in the meta. Maybe a DK. Depending, I don't really see a reason why you need grips, but we'll play with it. All right. So I think that, as it stands right now, I think we're going to see the meta lining up something like. So this is probably going to end up being something like the meta if Brewmaster is at the top, right? On the other side of that, I think get rid of all these specs. So we'll say that that's probably going to be what your meta looks like for if Brew ends up outperforming everybody, right? Now, if Vengeance ends up taking the cake, we want more magical damage. So I think that you could pair up a Vengeance Demon Hunter with a Discipline Priest. I think that Vengeance could pair up with a Resto Druid, Resto Shaman, any of the three of them. But I think Discipline is probably going to be the best option for vengeance, right? Then you want magic. So that's going to be mages, shamans, anybody doing magic damage. So I think that we'll see the meta is going to probably look something like this. So I think that these are going to be the meta specs, but I definitely think that as it stands, right now, I think that it's too early to say, and I think everything is balanced so incredibly well that I don't think Midnight Season 1, I don't think there's going to be a clear defined this is the meta, this is not the meta. And I think that we're going to see a season where there are multiple specs that are perfectly capable of doing higher keys, right? But yeah, that's gonna be it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will catch you in the next one.